talking Western Kentucky Hilltoppers today here on Sharpen the Point. Last season, it was a somewhat disappointing 8-6. The team has seemingly been stuck in this 8-9 win range over the past few seasons, and they really need to do something to get over the hump in a very winnable Conference USA. Tyson Helton enters his 7th season. He brings in a new offensive coordinator with Rick Bowie coming in from Abilene Christian. He was the offensive coordinator there as well. Quarterback, on its surface, the loss of Caden Veltkamp to Florida Atlantic stings coming off of his 3,125 touchdown season. He added another 7 touchdowns on the ground. I just believe his lack of accuracy and negative plays in taking 24 sacks and 10 interceptions left plenty of room for improvement. In steps Maverick McIver. He comes with his offensive coordinator from Abilene Christian, where he had a fantastic season throwing the football a year ago, amassing over 3,800 yards and 30 touchdowns. He has a much less athletic profile than Veltkamp, and I'd compare him more to Bailey Zappi as a pocket passer who gets the ball out fast and accurately to his weapons on the outside. McIver had an exceptional spring game, throwing for 4 touchdowns and finding the end zone on all 5 drives that he was in there for. I view him as an overall upgrade for the offense on Veltkamp, and he's talented. He came from Texas Tech previously. I love this kid. Running back-wise, bell cow rusher Elijah Young graduates off a quality season for a back in this air raid offense, gaining nearly 1,300 all-purpose yards with 5 touchdowns. George Hart's going to remain as the primary backup with the expectation that incoming transfer Lavelle Wright from Austin Peay picks up where Young left off. Pass catching wise, the trio of Keyshawn Johnson, Dalvin Smith, and Easton Messer. Easton Messer goes to FAU. The other 2 graduate, all of which were mainstays in the rotation. They're going to need to be replaced. Messer's probably Johnson was a really good player. Dalvin Smith, heck of a player in bowl games, but other than that, you wondered where the heck he was most of the time. KD Hutchinson returns after showing some promise and should step into a larger role, but the bulk of the load's going to fall onto a set of transfers with a solid amount of experience. Jarius Mack comes from Charlotte, Kelby Williams from Old Dominion, Matthew Henry from Western Illinois, and Cody Epps from BYU should pick up the slack in the rotation. The 2 standouts for me are going to be Epps. He's likely to replace Messer as a more athletic version in the slot, and Matthew Henry, who I have more questions about, but produced a 1,206 TDC last season. And he's going to replace Johnson on the outside. It's big shoes to fill with Johnson, but Henry looks the profile and fits it. I'm interested to see what Henry can do here. Quincy Burrows comes in from Wisconsin and Isaiah Myers from Purdue. They were late adds in the spring portal. I think they pushed to see the field, but we'll see what happens in that situation. Noah Myers, he's going to return and start at tight end after he kind of got his feet wet a year ago. And the upside's there for this group to be better than it was a year ago with just talent-based alone and with specifically Henry. I really want to see what he can do. Along the offensive line, the unit loses 4 of the 5 starters from a year ago with 2 transfers, Evan Wibberly going to Kentucky and Rodney Newsome going to South Carolina, vacating the middle. Marshall Jackson remains at 1 tackle spot. He's going to have to be the leader of this unit and bring these guys together with a number of transfers in Lawrence Seymour from Akron, Weston Wallace from Georgia Southern, Devon Smith from Louisiana Monroe, Quincy Jenkins coming from JMU, go Dukes, Caleb Nitta coming from Virginia Tech, and Nick Reimer coming from Bowling Green. They're going to kind of vie for these starting roles around him. He's the linchpin of this offensive line, clearly, with Jackson. The line spots are really up for grabs. There's just a ton of uncertainty. But ultimately, to me, the competition is good for them, and it's going to produce the best results, as that means they have options. Along the defensive line, losses of Hosea Wheeler to Indiana, Deontay McCray to FSU, and Terrion Thompson to graduation are going to hurt this pass rush. But the growth from within and additions from outside the program could ultimately lead to an overall improved unit. Returning Harper Holloman, he had a fantastic spring on his way to being named defensive MVP. The additions of Jaden Gray from Indiana, Machiavelli Molatuamu, He comes from Nevada. Vincent Sneed comes from Indiana as well. And then Jaden Hardy from Grambling. They're going to provide some upside to get after the passer, which is a clear need given the game scripts that you would expect them to have with this high-powered passing offense. At linebacker, nearly all the production from a year ago departs, with the only notable returner being Anthony Brackenridge. He's going to have an expanded role now and hope to solidify his spot with a number of transfers flanking him. Keenan Lofton, he comes from Jones College. He looks to have the inside track for one spot currently. Jalen Wester comes from Colorado. He has playing experience. He could force himself onto the field if he could fit into this system quickly enough over the summer. Defensive backfield, it's consistent with the rest of it. It's a large amount of turnover and a number of key contributors graduating. Kent Robinson's going to return to man his quarterback spot, with DeMarco Williams joining him and returning at safety. Otherwise, it's a full-blown competition abound between last year's depth needing to step up or transfers coming in, such as cornerback Jalen Emery from Houston, safety Marcus Knight from Old Dominion. That was a bad Old Dominion pass defense. I've touted that plenty. And at nickel, we're looking at Jalen Lewis from Temple and Avarion Cole from App State. Looking at the schedule and outlook, we know the offense is going to be good. That's just a consistency under Helton. It's just a question of how good it can be with the defense and if they can lead Helton to get over the bump to reach that 10-win mark in a Conference USA title. How the transfers perform on each side of the ball and how these guys gel together, mainly on the defense, is going to go a long way to making that a reality. They start the season at home with Sam Houston State. There's a ton of turnover there. I just think that that's an interesting game, but I would lean win. I think they can get the job done there. North Alabama, you're going to stat pad. McIver's going to have just a monster there. 5+ touchdowns through the air. At Toledo, that's a tough game. It's going to be offensive fireworks. I think Toledo just returns enough to get the win there, specifically at being at home is going to be the difference to me for Toledo to take care of business. High on Toledo this year. Nevada, that's a coin flip. It's at home. I would still lean a slight lean loss, but it's a coin flip game. It could go either way. That's going to be a key game for them. At Missouri State, win. At Delaware, win. You get those two teams. They're just fresh from the FCS. They're going to struggle a little out the gate. FIU, that's going to be a fun one. That I think you can get the job done there, but man, I really think that FIU team is going to be dangerous and they're going to catch somebody sleeping, specifically towards the top. At Louisiana Tech, win. You get a nice stretch here. New Mexico State, win. Middle Tennessee State, win. And then you get at LSU. Rest the starters early. You don't want that smoke. That's a rent a loss. You take the paycheck. You get the running clock in the fourth quarter, and you go home, get out of there. At Jacksonville State, that's what you rested up for from that LSU game. Tight game. It's coin flip. I'm going to lean win. I think they get the job done there. The schedule's nice. It sets up well for a showdown with Liberty in a Conference USA title game. 8-9 wins should be the expectation. It has been. It's the reality right now. And really only LSU and Toledo feel like spots where they should expect to lose, while Nevada could be that key game that we talked about earlier where they could hit 10 wins in the regular season. A spot in the conference title game in a bowl give them more opportunity to hit those double-digit wins. And I think they finally crest that hill and Tyson Helton gets that 10-win season that's been eluding him the last couple of seasons.